Hello, Glenda back from Top Notch Legal, and my question today for you is this. Is there any protection against a clever and ruthless business deal? We know that business can be ruthless even with a good contract. So the other party could exploit the situation, leaving you in a difficult position. They might use the contract for purposes that you didn't anticipate and yet still comply with its terms, which means that you've got no right to sue them. But basically, they have impunity. In an upcoming video, I'm going to share a real case illustrating the point. But for now, the question is this. Can a good faith obligation prevent such situations? Now, while many legal systems globally recognise the concept of good faith, Australia takes a different approach. Our contract law traditionally recognises the autonomy of the parties to negotiate pretty much any terms that they want without unnecessary interference from the law. Courts are hesitant to imply a general obligation of good faith, although they will often imply an obligation of reasonableness. But being reasonable doesn't go as far as a good faith obligation. For example, if you have to be reasonable, that doesn't imply that you have to act with fairness, whereas with a good faith obligation, that is one of the elements that's required. And we know this because there have been some contracts with a good faith obligation that have come before the courts. And so they've identified some elements that are required for good faith. And listen to these. Imagine one of your contracts with these elements in it. So each party has to act with fairness. They've got to be honest. They've got to be reasonable. And they mustn't undermine the objectives of the contract. At the same time, they must have regard to the other party's interests, although they're not required to subordinate their own interests. Now, if both parties adhere to these qualities, acting fairly, honestly, not undermining the objectives of the contract, for example, wouldn't it be beneficial? Now, in the upcoming videos, I'll explain how you can leverage a good faith obligation, and I'll share a client's actual case where I believe an obligation of good faith in the contract would have saved the day. So that's it from me today, Glenda from Top Notch Legal.